Hello everyone, welcome to World Map Forum. In today's video, we will discuss about Ramsar wetland sites. So firstly, what is Ramsar wetland site? So the Ramsar Convention is an international treaty for the conservation and sustainable utilization of wetlands, recognizing the fundamental ecological functions of wetlands and their economic, cultural, scientific and recreational values. What does it mean by wetland? So the wetland consists of marshes and swamps of saturated land. So here you can see the detailed definition of wetland, which includes in convention is given. So it includes all lakes and rivers, underground aquifers, swamps and marshes, wet grasslands, peatlands, oases, estuaries, deltas and tidal flats, mangroves and other coastal areas, coral reefs and all human-made sites such as fish pond, rice paddies, reservoirs and salt pan. So here you can see this is the picture. Let me show you. This is the picture of wetland. Now you have got the idea what is wetland. So the convention uses a broad definition as we have discussed previously. So the Convention on Wetland is the intergovernmental treaty that provides the framework for conservation and wise use of wetland and their resources. The convention was adopted. Here you can see. This is the key point. The convention was adopted in the Iranian city of Ramsar in 1971 and came into force in 1975. Basically, after 4 years, it came into force, and since then, almost 90% of UN member states from all the world's geographic region have acceded to become contracting parties. So here comes the another definition of the convention: contracting parties. So basically, a contracting party agrees to nominate at least one wetland in its territory to the list of wetlands of international importance based on enumerated criteria. So the convention was adopted in 1971. This is the key point. Now let me show you the Ramsar city on the world map. Here you can see Ramsar city and it is showing in Iran. Now let's search it. Here this is showing the Ramsar city. This area, this highlighted area is showing the Ramsar city. Here you can see this is Ramsar. Here you can see this is Ramsar city of Iran, and here you can see this is Iran and this is Ramsar city where the convention was adopted in 1971. Now let me erase all this and take you back. So what is the convention's mission? The conservation and wise use of all wetlands through local and national action and international cooperation. Here you can see these are all the keywords as a contribution toward achieving a sustainable development throughout the world. Basically, the Ramsar Convention is all about the sustainable development of the resources, and this is the wetland site of some specific area. This is the convention's mission. Now let me take you another slide. So there are three pillars of the conventions which works as a fundamental for the convention. So first pillar is work toward the wise use of all the wetlands, and the second one is designate suitable wetlands for the list of wetlands of international importance, which is Ramsar list, and ensure their effective management. So the third one is cooperate internationally on transboundary wetlands, shared wetland system and shared species. So these three all the pillars of the convention. The Convention on Wetland is the oldest of the modern global Intergovernmental Environmental Agreement. The treaty was negotiated through the 1960s by countries and non-governmental organizations concerned about the increasing loss. Here you can see this is the keyword, increasing loss and degradation of wetland habitat for migratory water birds. So these are all the concerns which was first discussed in 1960, and from here the convention came into the light. Now let's talk about the Ramsar Conference. Iran's Game and Fish Department organizes and holds a conference at the Caspian seaside resort of Ramsar city of Iran, where the Convention on Wetland of International Importance, especially as Waterfowl Habitat, is agreed by the representatives of 18 nations. The treaty was signed on 3rd Feb 1971, and after 4 years in 1975, it came into force. Now let's talk about the first accession. Australia becomes the first state to deposit an instrument of accession to the convention. So basically, the first country which signed the convention was Australia, and it signed the convention on January 1st, 1974. So now let's talk about the first Ramsar site. Australia names the Cobourg Peninsula as the first Ramsar site in 1974. Here you can see May 8, 1974, and the Cobourg Peninsula, a remote and unspoiled wilderness area on the far northern coast of Australia, which is a home to many threatened marine species and provides safe breeding areas to seabird colonies. It has a fascinating indigenous, Moccasin and European history. So here you can see this is the picture of Cobourg Peninsula, and this is also the picture of sunset of Cobourg Peninsula. So when the convention enters into the force, after UNESCO. The convention's depository receives from Greek an instrument of accession to become the convention's 7th contracting party. So basically, the convention came into force in 1975, 1st December. Here you can see 1975. Since then, the convention has become one of the major driving force to conserve the wetlands. So now let's talk about the first World Wetlands Day. On February 2nd, 1997, the first Wetland Day was celebrated, and about 50 nations celebrated the event, and since then it became an annual event. So now let's talk about the transboundary Ramsar site. Hungary and Slovakia in 2001 agreed to collaborate management of the first transboundary Ramsar site, Bardala Cave System and Domica. Now let me show you this on the map. So Bardala Cave System, here you can see it is showing in Hungary. Here we got that. So you can see this is Hungary and this is Slovakia, and the Bardala Cave System is located on the border of the both country. Here you can see, oh, let me draw the line. Here you can see this is the border of the Hungary and Slovakia. So now you have got the idea where the first transboundary Ramsar wetlands is located. Now let's talk about the Global Wetland Outlook. The first report, Global Wetland Outlook, published presenting wetland extent, trends, driver of change, and the responses needed to reverse the historical decline in wetland area and quality. And the first Global Wetland Outlook was published on September 22 of 2018. Here you can see this was the theme of the Global Wetland Outlook. So now let's talk about the Wetland City Accreditation. 18 cities recognized for safeguarding urban wetlands. So here you can see the first 6 cities are in China, and there is no cities of Indian territory. So now let's talk about the importance of wetlands. The first importance of wetland is wetlands are vital for human survival, which is true, and they are among the world's most productive environment, cradles of biological diversity that divides the water and productivity upon which the countless species of plants, animals depends for survival. So wetlands are very crucial not just for human beings but for whole species. Wetlands are indispensable for the countless benefits or ecosystem services. So here you can see Wetlands provide us the ecosystem services that they provide humanity, ranging from freshwater supply, food and building material, and biodiversity to flood control, groundwater recharge, and climate change mitigation. So wetland faces some kind of challenges, and the wetland area and the quality continue to decline in most regions of the world. As a result, the ecosystem services that wetland provide to people are compromised. And the another challenge is managing wetland is a global challenge, and the convention presently counts 172 countries as a contracting parties, which recognize the value of having one international treaty dedicated to a single ecosystem. So what are the conditions for joining the convention? So at the time of the joining the convention, each contracting party must designate at least one wetland site within their territory for inclusion in the list of wetland of international importance, which is called as Ramsar list or Ramsar site. So every individual country must have one wetland site for joining the convention. These Ramsar sites acquires a new national and international status. They are recognized as a being of significant value not only for the country or the countries in which they are located, but for the humanity as a whole. So wetland just serves the whole humanity. So currently there are over 2400 Ramsar sites around the world, and they cover over 2.5 million square kilometer of area, the area which is larger than the Mexico. So as we have discussed, each contracting party must have to designate one wetland for the inclusion of the list, and they select suitable wetland for the designation by referring to the criteria for identifying wetland of international importance. So there are criteria which qualifies the wetlands for joining the convention. So one of the major thing which convention do is it provides a guidance to contracting parties on management of Ramsar site, in addition to its guidance on the wise use of all wetlands. So the ecological character of wetlands are very unique. So the inclusion of a wetland in the list embodies the government's commitment to take the step necessary to ensure that its ecological character is maintained. The convention includes various measures to respond the threats to the ecological character of sites. So basically the convention responds the threats which the wetlands faces, and the convention minimizes the threat to the ecological character of the wetland. So now let's talk about the international cooperation. The Convention on Wetland provides the single most global framework for intergovernmental cooperation on wetland. And the Article 5 of the convention is very important, which says that the contracting parties shall consult with each other about implementing obligations arising from the convention, especially in the case of a wetland extending over the territories of more than one contracting parties, where a water system is shared by contracting parties. They shall at the same time endeavor to coordinate and support present and future policies and regulations concerning the conservation of wetlands and their flora and fauna, and by setting international standards for wetlands conservation and providing a forum for discussing global wetland issues. The convention enables contracting parties to share information on wetlands and address the issue together. Basically, the issue on the wetland is a collective responsibility, not just for the one nation but for the whole world. So these photos are the wetland sites of some specific territories. So now let's talk about the transboundary wetland of international importance. So increasingly, contracting parties are designating their new and existing Ramsar site as a transboundary wetland of international importance. These are ecologically coherent, shared wetland extending across national borders, which are managed by collaboratively by the authorities on all the sides of the border under a formal agreement. So there is an agreement of the contracting party in between the contracting party which regulates the transboundary wetland of international importance. So now let's talk about the Ramsar regional initiatives. Groups of contracting parties with a common geographical focus or goal can also work together as regional initiative cooperating within the framework of the convention. There are two types of regional initiatives. First one is Ramsar Regional Center for Training and Capacity Building, and the second one is Network for Regional Cooperation. So now let's talk about the bodies of the convention. The contracting parties implement the convention on wetland in their territories and collaborate on shared project. The government agency responsible for its national application is known as the country's administrative authority, and this agency appoints a national focal point to coordinate national implementation and act as a daily contact point. And every 3 years, the parties meet at the conference of contracting parties, where they adopt decision to administer the convention and guide its implementation. Between the COPs, the parties are represented by a standing committee which meets on yearly basis. So here you can see the contracting party of conference meets every 3 years, and the standing committee meets on every year. The standing committee is guided by the framework of the decision made by the conference of parties. So India signed the convention on February 1st in 1982, and it came into force on the same date. And currently in March 2022, India has 49 Ramsar sites with a surface area of 1 million plus hectares. So here you can see this is the official website screenshot of Ramsar, and here you can see this is the February 1st news. India names 2 new wetlands of international importance. So these 2 new wetlands are Khijadia Wildlife Sanctuary and Bakhira Wildlife Sanctuary. Now let me show you this on the map. So here Khijadia Bird Sanctuary. Here you can see this is Khijadia Bird Sanctuary or Khijadia Wildlife Sanctuary, and this has been designated as Ramsar Wetland Site in 2022, and it is located in Gujarat state. Now let me show you the Bakhira Wildlife Sanctuary. Here you can see this is UP and this is Gorakhpur, and here is Bakhira Wildlife Sanctuary. This is the second wetland designated in 2022. So the number of wetland sites in India is 49. So now you have got the idea where these 2 wildlife sanctuary, or can say the wetland site, is located. So now let me take you back. So this is Khijadia Wildlife Sanctuary and this is Bakhira Wildlife Sanctuary. That's all for today's video. Hope you find this video helpful. If you did, hit the like button. If you have any query or suggestion, do comment. Subscribe to the channel for more updates. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. See you in the next video. Till then, bye.